Why your life was preparing you long before you knew it. How the darkest seasons became part of your wholeness. And what if nothing was wasted? Why do painful experiences only make sense years later? There's some moment in every genuine transformation when the question changes. For a long time we ask, what is this happening to me? Why does healing feel so slow? Why does life get harder before it gets better? Why do I feel like I've outgrown my old life? Then we begin healing, and almost without noticing, a different question appears. What was all this preparing me for? Not every life arrives at this question. It usually appears only after survival loosens its grip. Only after the nervous system no longer mistakes every unknown for danger. Only after we become still enough to look backward without becoming trapped here. We assume healing changes the future. Often, it changes how we perceive the past. Not the events, but the meaning. If you've ever wondered why your life seemed to stand still while everyone else moved on, and don't leave before the final chapter, that's where everything we've explored begins to come together. Why we forget ourselves before we remember. The veil of conditioning or forgetfulness. No child arrives asking, who am I? The first question is much simpler. What must I become to belong, to survive? From the psychology lens, before we develop an identity, we develop adaptations, survival strategies. We learn which emotions are welcomed, which truths create conflict, which parts of ourselves feel safe enough to express, and which must be hidden. Slowly, adaptation becomes identity, and our true nature is buried beneath it, gradually but surely. Carl Jung warned that the greatest privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. That sounds simple until we realize how much of ourselves was organized around being accepted rather than being authentic. Across contemplative traditions, we find remarkably similar observations. Buddhism speaks of ignorance, not a lack of intelligence, but forgetting our true nature. Hindu philosophy describes the Maya, confusing appearances with reality. Different languages, one human experience. We forget, not because we are broken, because adaptation is often the price of belonging and surviving. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is constantly predicting what's about to happen. Healing doesn't simply change what we remember, it changes what we expect, and when expectation changes, possibility expands. Now let's reflect. Which parts of yourself learned to survive before they did learn to live? Drop one word in the comment and ignite welcome recognition from someone else who may have the same realization. Why preparation often feels like delay? What is the dark night of the soul? Why do I feel stuck after personal growth? How do I know if I'm healing? We judge our lives from the middle of the story, and the middle rarely makes sense. Waiting feels like failure. Repetition feels like punishment. Silence and status quo feel like abandonment. From a scientific perspective, developmental psychology suggests that growth is less like construction and more like maturation. Capacity develops before authentic performance and before receiving. Imagine walking into a concert hall while the orchestra is still tuning. If you judge the performance by those first sounds, you'd completely misunderstand what was about to unfold. Some seasons of life are tuning, not the symphony itself. Have you noticed the people doing the deepest inner work rarely look the busiest? From the outside, very little seems to happen, but beneath the surface, an entirely new relationship with life is taking shape. Roots deepen long before branches become visible. Medieval builders sometimes spent decades laying foundations for cathedrals they would not live to see completed. They understood something our culture often forgets. Some work is too important to rush. Looking backward, the years we call delays often reveal themselves as preparation. Every mountain has a valley, yet we speak only of the summit. We celebrate arrival. We overlook the necessary formation that comes before it. Preparation often looks like standing still. It isn't. It's life growing roots you cannot yet see. Why the valley changes everything. The descent before the ascent. Every wisdom tradition understands something modern culture resists. Descent is not failure, it is initiation. Carl Jung called it confronting the shadow to reclaim and integrate the parts of ourselves we exiled through the process of individuation. Medieval alchemists described the nigredo phase, the dark stage in which old structures dissolve before something more integrated can emerge. This is a phase of the great work, an alchemical process that refines the lead of our consciousness into gold. All meaningful consciousness shifts follow the opus magnum process, also called the great work. Many contemplative traditions describe periods of profound emptiness not as punishment, but as preparation, involving isolation, stillness, and recalibration. Scientific research into post-traumatic growth suggests that while trauma itself is never inherently beneficial, some people later discover deeper meaning, stronger relationships, and a renewed sense of purpose through the work of integrating what they have lived, reaching a state of wholeness and inner peace, not perfection. The wound is eventually seen as a gift, a teacher, a catalyst for growth and wisdom. The transformation is the process that transmutes the wound into power. The valley was never the opposite of the mountain. It was the path to it. Here's the quiet truth. The life you're trying to return to no longer exists. And that's not the tragedy. The tragedy would be returning unchanged. You weren't called to recover the person you were. You were invited to become someone capable of living more honestly, more authentically. Why healing changes the story you tell about your life. Seeing the weaving. Why do I feel different from everyone else? Why do old wounds resurface? These are some questions we may ask. Healing does not erase the past, it restores context. Then, suddenly, the person who broke your heart becomes part of a larger unfolding. The job you didn't get, the move you resisted, the friendship that ended. None of them stand alone anymore. They all form part of the tapestry of your unfolding. From a scientific perspective, memory is not a perfect recording. It is an archive reconstructed. As our understanding changes, the meaning we assign to past experiences can change as we evolve. We don't rewrite history. We become capable of reading it differently by reframing it from a different state of awareness, wisdom, and maturity. If this chapter feels familiar, I invite you to write just one word in the comments. Not your whole story, just one word. The word that describes the season you're walking through right now. Sometimes a single honest word reminds someone else they're not walking alone. Healing doesn't make you someone new. It removes everything that convinced you were someone else. What we really inherit beyond family stories. None of us begins life with a blank page. We inherited languages, beliefs, emotional patterns, ways of responding to conflict, ways of expressing love, and ways of protecting ourselves. Research in family systems and epigenetics suggests that aspects of our environment and the stress responses of previous generations can influence how later generations adapt. The science is still evolving, but it points toward a profound truth. We are shaped by stories that began before we were born. However, we do not carry the past so we can remain imprisoned by it. We carry it so that consciousness has another opportunity to respond, to choose, to expand. The ascent begins here. Why does trauma change identity? What is shadow work? Something changes when the past no longer needs to be fought or re-energized or relived. Energy once consumed by survival and defending old identities becomes available for creation. You begin noticing the weave, not only behind you, around you too. More aligned relationships arrive, meaningful conversations become more prevalent, seemingly ordinary moments become fated invitations, not because life suddenly became meaningful, because you became available to meaning, because you expanded your awareness and can see more of reality and its patterns in you and the world around you. You are seeing clearly the weaving, the network of unfolding. You have learned field literacy, and you have learned to trust your inner knowing and inner guidance system. You experience the participatory aspect of your relationship with the universe, the field at large. You realize that you always belong to life itself. You no longer wait for a sign. You are the sign of your unfolding. You are the path and the way. Your interconnectedness and oneness with the benevolent universe is experienced more and more fully. If this documentary helped you see your own journey differently, consider sharing it with someone who's quietly doing the work. The people who need this the most are often the ones who never ask for help. Perhaps remembering isn't recovering a forgotten version of yourself. Perhaps it is recognizing that every season, every valley, every unanswered question was shaping your capacity to become more fully human while honoring your divinity. Shifting your perception by being so led in a benevolent universe. Recognizing that you were never lost, broken, or behind, but unfolding as your authentic self. Remembering your true nature and being it more consciously and fully. The journey home is rarely a straight line. It winds through loss, uncertainty, courage, surrender, and isolation until one day you look back and instead of seeing fragments, you see a tapestry, you see the patterns, the weaving. In our next transmission, we'll explore what happens after remembering, because insight can change the mind, but only embodiment changes a life. The Great Deceleration. Every culture celebrates acceleration. Faster, higher, bigger, more. But almost nothing enduring is built that way. Forests don't hurry. Mountains don't compete and compare. Neither does the nervous system. Long before life asks us to expand, it often asks us to slow down, to limit noise and static, not as punishment, as preparation. Under prolonged stress, the nervous system narrows its attention to survival. Curiosity contracts, creativity contracts, presence contracts. Healing is not simply feeling better. It is recovering the capacity to perceive more than danger. The ego measures progress by speed. Life measures it by death. When time appears to stop, one of the strangest experiences of deep transformation is that time seems to disappear or refuse to move. Nothing happens, nothing arrives. The world appears to continue without you, and the ego interprets stillness as failure. But life has another relationship with time, not linear, but cyclical, like a spiral. Seeds are never judged by the silence beneath the soil. The seed of transformation, not as a metaphor, as biology. A seed does not grow by protecting its original form. It grows because the shell that once protected it becomes too small for what it carries. Germination begins with rupture. The shell breaks, not because it failed, because it succeeded. We often pray for transformation while asking to remain intact. Life rarely grants both. Life is a process of death and rebirth. It also follows cycles, seasons, and those are personal to each one, yet connect to a collective process like cycles within cycles. The necessary descent. Every foundation is built by going down before it rises. Skyscrapers unfold from beneath the ground before they appear above it. Trees begin with roots descending and strengthening into darkness before branches reach toward light. Human beings are no different. The descent is not a bottomless pit. It is excavation. It is enabling works. It is foundational. Life is making room for something that cannot be built on the surface, but for something sustainable, for capacity to hold your emergent self in all its magnificence and vastness. Every valley asks the same question. Will you keep walking when no one applauds? Virtues the ego cannot manufacture. They are qualities achievement cannot produce. Patience, humility, discernment, compassion without performance, presence without urgency, quiet confidence, inner peace, coherence. These rarely emerge while the inherently limited ego still believes it can control every outcome. They are cultivated when control, forcing, pushing, chasing no longer work. Patience isn't waiting, it's learning to trust the work that's happening while nothing appears to change. Carl Jung observed that no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. He wasn't glorifying suffering, he was describing depth, where our true essence resides underneath the learned programs and conditioning. He was also describing where our buried fragments were exiled, our shadow. From survival to life. There comes a day, almost unnoticed, when surviving is no longer your full-time occupation. You breathe differently, you choose differently, you no longer scan every room for danger. You begin looking for beauty, for joy, for peace, for the meaningful. Energy that once protected the false self becomes available to express the true self, the authentic and sovereign being you were born to be. You were never becoming worthy. Worthiness is inherent to you simply by being alive. You were remembering you always were. Capacity building. Almost nobody talks about it. Healing is not becoming brighter, it is having the capacity, the inner bandwidth to hold light and darkness without identifying with one side over the other. It is making peace with our humanity and divinity, with our duality, and becoming integrated and whole. Not perfect, it is making peace with paradoxes. It is becoming able to hold more brightness without losing yourself, more love without dependency, more success without inflation, more grief without collapse, more joy without fear that it will disappear, expansion without fragmentation, light without leaving the ground. For years, bamboo appears to do almost nothing above the ground. During that time, an extensive root system is forming beneath the surface. Once established, some species can grow astonishingly fast in a short period. Growth didn't suddenly begin, it became visible. Clay cannot hold its shape until it has been pressed, centered, formed, and fired. Remove any one of those stages and the vessel won't endure. The inner home. Not enlightenment, but home. Gradually, something becomes unmistakable. You stop searching everywhere for permission to exist. You stop negotiating your worth with every success, every material accumulation, every relationship, every opinion. Something quieter arrives, an inner place, a centeredness you can return to anytime, anywhere, not because life has become certain, but because you have. Not certainty about the future, certainty about where you stand within yourself. Home was never somewhere else. It was what remained after everything false had fallen away. As many spiritual schools assert, God is within. You start embracing both your divinity and humanity, your multidimensionality, your wholeness. If this path has felt lonely, if it has seemed slower than everyone else's, if you've questioned yourself because the world rewards speed while your life demanded depth, hear this. There are people, most of whom you will never meet, walking the same road. Not the easy road, not the fashionable road, but the honest one. The road that asks us to turn toward what hurts instead of away from it. To meet the shadow rather than project it. To exchange certainty and comfort for truth. To become less defended and more real. This is what many traditions have called the great work, not because it makes us extraordinary, because it makes us whole. So if you've chosen that courageous path, if you stayed when it would have been easier to escape or numb, if you've allowed life to reshape you instead of merely reassure you, this is our quiet acknowledgement. You're not behind, you're not deficient, you were never broken or lost. You emerging as someone the surface could never have produced. And though the work is deeply personal, you were never walking it alone. The longest journey you'll ever take is the 18 inches from your mind to your heart. A returning home practice. Before we close, I'd like to offer you something simple. Not another practice to master, a place to return. Tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, before the world begins telling you who you need to be, before starting to loop again, place one hand over your heart and one over your abdomen. Feel the breath that is already breathing you. No need to change it, simply notice. Notice the weight of your body, notice the ground beneath you, notice that before a single thought appears, you already belong to this moment. You're here, present, alive. Then ask yourself one question. What would it feel like to begin this day from home, rather than from habit? No need to answer immediately. Let the body answer first. In the evening and before sleep, return again. Place your hand on your heart and take 3 slow, unforced breaths with longer exhales. Then quietly release the day, not by replaying it, not by judging it, simply by saying, today I return what was never mine to carry. I keep only what helped me become more real. Then thank yourself, not for getting everything right, but for staying with the work. Quietly, honestly. One more day, one more opportunity to choose to be. Affirmations can sometimes ask people to convince themselves of something they don't yet feel. Orientation asks them to simply return to your breath, return to your body, return to your center, return to what is quietly true. Then begin again from that groundedness, that presence. This is the revelation and the return. And until next time, tend the fire within and keep inhabiting your energetic frequency signature more fully, more consciously. Keep returning to your desired state of being until it becomes your default vibrational state. The surface is always the last place transformation arrives. Heal deep, rise sovereign, enter at your own shift. Welcome home. Still Fire 1111. The frequency calls, the fire rises, enter at your own shift. Still Fire 1111. And if this resonated with you, subscribe to the series, download the free ebook Energy is Everything, Using Science and Spirit to Master Vibrational Reality, free for subscribers of Still Fire 1111. And to celebrate my launch on Heal Me, book a free 20-minute discovery call. This is not about becoming someone else. This is about finally allowing who you are to organize your life. Heal deep, rise sovereign. The fire rises, and now it radiates. Enter at your own shift. Welcome.